Hello, everybody. My name is Cheree. I am with SimpliFunded, and we are a lender that works a lot with investors to help you build your portfolios. We help you fund your portfolios through both hard money loans as well as long-term investment loans. And I am quite creative in how I work with my clients. I also work with a lot of self-employed individuals that traditional banks say no to. We have a lot of places that will say yes to getting you in your own home. And, also work with other individuals as well who are just looking to build the American dream through real estate investment. So uh, I wanted to invite Mike Capello here, and we're going to be doing this specific call once a month to talk about buying off market properties. And then Mike actually has a weekly thing that he's doing as well to help people who really want to get into wholesaling learn more about how to make profits from that. But I'm going to toss it over to Mike. Hello.
Hello. Thank you, Cheree. Thank you for setting this up. Um, so today I've got some slides put together from a wholesaling presentation that I did, but it applies to today's topic as well, buying off-market properties. For me, wholesaling is just a way to find deals for us to buy and hold and potentially fix and flip and or wholesale. So um, I use the term wholesaling loosely, but today I've sort of modified this presentation a little bit. It's baseline, basic, getting started and finding deals. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and get started. If you guys have questions as we go, feel free to chime in, stop me. And we have this scheduled for an hour, so I'm going to try and move through this quickly because it's taken me a little bit longer than an hour on the last couple, so I'll do my best to work through it. So I'm Mike Capello. I am an investor, wholesaler. I'm also a licensed agent and owner of Sell Simply, which is our outward-facing marketing business, how we get our opportunities. We market to distressed sellers as a cash home buyer, kind of the cash home buyer model. Just a little bit about me. I started in real estate just in 2022, so just a handful of years ago after I sold a business in 2019. I owned a landscaping business, 15 years almost doing that. Learned a ton. Happy to be out of that and into real estate. 2020, I became a licensed agent with Casa. Kind of jumped around a little bit as I was figuring out my story and what I wanted to do. Around 2021, I found Pace Morby Sub 2 Group and Creative Finance and got extremely excited about that and the potential that brings to us. And so I had the idea to kind of start this wholesale business with the intention of looking for properties to buy creatively. And that was the birth of Sell Simply in 2022. Last year we did about 350 in gross revenue with a mix of wholesale, fix and flip, and then we bought since the inception of Sell Simply we bought 8 properties, a bunch of sub twos, some cash, some mix of private money. Cheree's helped us along the way with that, so definitely tap into her as a resource. She's been great to us, helping us build our portfolio. My biggest claim to fame thus far, I threw it on here. December 2022, if you look up Bigger Pockets 860, I was on an episode talking about some deals, which is pretty cool, the end of last year. So you guys have a chance, check that out. Give it a listen. 2024, we're hoping to do 1 million gross, adding 10 doors. I'm also part of the reason why I'm doing this is I'm looking for some people that are interested in becoming part of a team that we're building. So as Cheree mentioned, I'm going to be holding a weekly kind of more of a wholesale training on a weekly basis. It's going to be Mondays at 4 o'clock. For people that are really wanting to get into wholesaling and get some hands-on training and experience and question and answer, some scripting and calling. And so I'll be doing that every Monday from 4. I should have thrown that on here. But if you guys are interested in that, I'll have my contact information at the end. I'll also make sure I get everybody's contact information and send you guys a link to that meeting. Personal goals. Over the last 3 years of figuring things out and making some mistakes, I've racked up a little bit of debt, not a ton, fortunately, up to this point. But my goal for 2024 is to pay off all my debt and take my family on a nice vacation this year. So we've got 2 babies, and we haven't really done any vacationing lately. So I'm excited to afford my family the opportunity to do that. So I'm going to skip this part. Typically, I would go around and let everybody introduce themselves, but in the interest of everybody's time, if you guys want to put something in the chat, do we have a chat function here, Cheree? You guys
Yeah,
can
we
put
have a
put
chat
something in the
function.
chat,
So
or if you
actually,
guys
it
are
would
watching on,
be great if just everyone said if you are a
okay,
first-time investor or if
yeah,
you've already purchased
I'm down.
investment
Oh, there's the
property. Just
chat.
let us know that.
Um, are we chatting or are we going around?
Oh, I
What do you
just
want to
thought
do,
we were
Cheree?
putting it in the chat.
Oh yeah, throw it
So
in the
yeah,
chat.
so
If
people
you
are
guys are
putting that in
watching
the
on
chat.
Facebook, throw it in the chat too.
Yes.
Cool. So quick agenda. I do want to take a minute to talk about kind of vision and mindset. 'Cause for me, that was very important and integral piece to my journey getting started. So we'll take a couple minutes to talk through that. Then we'll talk a little bit more in detail about zoning a market, lead gen strategy, scripting, briefly, some follow-up and tracking, and then how we could work together as well. And if we have some time, we'll do Q&A, and I'll have my contact information at the end of this as well. So starting off with vision and mindset, like I said, when I started in 2022, as a matter of fact, when I sold my business in 2019, part of that was just I was at the end of my rope. I was stressed out. We were getting ready to have our first kid. All of that through COVID then happened. I was in a terrible place mentally, physically as well. So a lot of my journey along this has been figuring out who I want to be, um, what I want out of life, what I want out of this business, and becoming crystal clear on that has been extremely helpful with my day-to-day activity. At the end of the day, wholesaling, finding deals, it's really quite simple, and we'll talk a little bit about that, but it's definitely not easy. It takes a lot of determination, a lot of hustle, a lot of putting fears aside and putting limiting beliefs aside and putting yourself out there to make mistakes. And if you're not in a good place mentally, it makes a lot of those things really challenging. So we'll talk about some ways to kind of get around that or get started down the path to figuring some of those things out. Um, and it's all about, starting with taking a look inward, taking a look at yourself. Where are you at? Where are you at mentally? What's your mindset like? And being real about it. And if you're not feeling like you're in a place where you feel like you can really focus and concentrate and um set yourself up for success, that's okay, like, but just be real and recognize it and start doing some of the activities that we're going to talk about to focus on yourself and how you can put yourself in a better place to be successful. So like I said, for me it was like, who do I want to be? What does that person look like? What are their habits? Even how do they dress and how do they show up like for things? So like for me, I started reading a lot of books about people that were successful and habits that they had and ways that they acted and even like I said, how they dress and it all adds up. So think about those things and think about the person you want to become. The other thing, and I'm gonna try and run through this because I know not everybody is in this place, but for those of you that are just starting out that are feeling lost, this is really good stuff here. Being intentional is a huge part of wholesaling. You have to be intentional with your time. You have to set yourself up and you set your day up for success. Um, know what you're going to do the night before or the more early morning before you get started, and plan accordingly. Like for me, this is my, I don't, hopefully you guys can see this. So this is my morning routine every morning. It's the exact same thing every morning. I get up at the same time, 5 a.m. I have my pre-workout. I go to the gym for an hour. I listen to a podcast on the way home and on the way, or a book on tape. I go to the sauna, I sit in the sauna for 20 minutes and kind of do some breath work and meditation. I come home, I review my calendar and have my breakfast and my coffee, and that kind of starts my day every day. Um, the importance of that is like, number one, for me, it's like finding something, and you hear this a lot if you listen to any sort of like health or wellness podcast. It's like, find something hard to do first thing in the morning. For me, it's going to the gym. It's not for everybody, I get it, but like even if it's just go out, take a walk, or um, find something hard to start your day and stick to it on a daily basis, and just start with one thing and create habits, because creating habits in your daily life is going to create habits in your business life, help you set up a rhythm to your day. And that is the key to success in finding deals, is follow up, consistency, all of these things. So you start doing the minor things like in your daily day-to-day life, those activities are going to trickle down into your business as well. And again, like going back to my origin story, I was in a terrible place mentally, physically when I started out. I was depressed. I had terrible anxiety, panic attacks, like the whole 9 yards. So taking care of myself was a big part of my success now, starting 4 years ago, 5 years ago, when I was like, okay, this is not the person I want to be. Who do I want to be? What are the things I need to do? For me, again, it was, I started with just going to the gym every day. And then I slowly started adding these other activities day to day until it's become a routine. It's just part of my day. It's how I start every single day. So I would encourage you guys to do that. Just if you're in a place where where you're feeling lost, you're feeling like you don't know how to get started, start with you, start with yourself, pick one thing, start doing it every day, something that you can do every single day, and start doing it tomorrow. Couple really, really good books that I read that got me thinking about this sort of habit routine. Atomic Habits, amazing book. Check it out. Mindset is another one. The two of them together are like super powerful. So I would encourage you guys to check those books out. Another just small thing, but for me, it's been great. Like setting up even your workspace, um, and having it be clean and organized. And some of these things, may be hard to do, but as you start in business, like start thinking about these things. It's going to make your daily activity a lot easier, especially if you're prospecting for deals, you're making a lot of calls. Like these things are super important. Finding a place where you can concentrate, keeping your space clean and uncluttered. Standing up while you're speaking is a huge one for me. It keeps my energy up, allows me to make calls. And taking breaks is another huge one. Like I kind of do my calling in 20-minute increments. So I'll do 20 minutes and then I'll kind of like either do something or go upstairs and have a glass of water. Maybe I'll go stand outside for a few minutes. But you want to keep that energy up. Another great thing if you're getting started is finding somebody, a group. I mean, like the group that I've created, I think would be great for this, but like even somebody that's getting started in wholesaling or investing, that you can kind of have an accountability partner, a battle buddy, that you can hold each other accountable, you can make calls together, is a great way to build energy. Energy creates energy. And the last one, I'll touch on this again real quick, vision boards. Like I thought it was the cheesiest thing to do, but I think it was like 2022, right when I was getting started with Sell Simply. Um, the Kaza team that I joined has the yearly meetup. You guys know a couple of you guys on here. Creating a vision board, kind of like rolled my eyes at it, but I made my vision board. I stuck it up in front of me. I looked at it every day. And lo and behold, by the end of the year, like I had knocked off like two huge roadblocks, two of which were like buying a mountain house and buying a river house. And I did that my first basically year. And so I felt it was really powerful and I started buying into it. And so I've continued to do that and continue to keep it in front of my space where when I'm making calls and I'm having a rough day or I'm not getting anywhere, every day I'm looking at it. I'm like, here are my goals. This is why I'm doing this. So I would encourage you guys to do that. I've also got pictures of all my kids around me. Same thing, same thing to keep you motivated and having your whys there in front of you so that when you're frustrated or when things aren't going your way, you've got something to look at in front of you that makes you realize why you're doing all this hard work. So if you three things that hold everybody back in this business, these are like I've done all of them. Probably everybody that gets started in real estate to some degree has done all of these things and struggles with these things. I call them the three P's: procrastination, paralysis by analysis, and perfectionism. These are the biggest roadblocks to finding deals or to getting started in wholesaling. Procrastination, obvious one, like prioritizing the wrong things, getting distracted, putting things off. Super common, especially the prioritizing of wrong activities. You know, you want to get an LLC set up, you want to get your marketing tuned in, you want to study and study, and I guess that kind of falls in more of perfectionism, but you get the idea. Procrastination. I'm a huge was more so than am a huge procrastinator when I got started. I did all the wrong things until I started taking action. Paralysis by analysis is probably the biggest one that every new investor gets stuck in. Over analyzing deals or deal strategies, you know, trying to figure out what's the ARV, what's my purchase price, what is my how much money am I going to make on this thing before you've ever even picked up the phone and had a conversation with the seller. Till you do that, you don't have anything. And then perfectionism, I'm definitely guilty of this one. Feeling like you need to know everything before you start talking, before you start having conversations or doing deals. You know, I need to know exactly what to say. I need to know what script I'm going to use. I need to know, whatever it is. It's a limiting belief, and it's gonna slow you down from doing the activity that you need to do. Okay, we're gonna go ahead. If anybody has questions about any of that stuff, please chime in. Um, if not, I'll go ahead and jump into kind of like action steps as far as how to get started in finding deals. And I'll give you an example of my story from the start of my real estate journey. I took probably the better part of 2 years, 2.5 years to really, number one, figure out what I wanted to do, which was wholesale creative finance kind of model that I talked about earlier. But I tried a lot of things. I tried being an agent. I tried, working with retail, working with investors, and then I jumped to, oh, I'm going to wholesale, but I didn't have a clear vision on how I wanted to do that. So I tried several markets. I tried several strategies from direct to seller to agent outreach to this to that and jumped around. Felt like I was getting nowhere. I was getting frustrated until I became extremely intentional with the market that I was focused on and the seller avatar, seller type, seller subset, whatever you want to call it, the type of seller that I wanted to attract, that I wanted to market to, and the geographic area that I wanted to focus on. There's lots of people in real estate doing lots of cool things, and it's really easy to get distracted, but you're going to end up spinning your wheels and wasting a ton of time by watching what everybody else is doing. The way that I narrowed it down was what do I want to do? Where do I want to be buying? And for me, it was here in Northern Virginia, Front Royal. I really love the area. There's a lot of opportunity there. I like the short-term rental space. So I kind of focused in on Front Royal, surrounding areas of Warren County, Frederick County, and Winchester, because that's where I wanted to be buying. And ultimately, that was my goal, was to be buying assets. So I focused in on that market. And then I toyed around with a bunch of marketing activities until I landed on pre-foreclosures, which is a very popular seller, type to go after. But I really didn't have any success wholesaling until I became laser focused on the geographic area and pre-foreclosures. And it took me probably the better part of 3 months of very focused attention on that specific seller type and those specific areas until things really started happening for me from a deal flow perspective. So getting started, first two things are pick your geographic location, whether that be a county, a zip code, your neighborhood, whatever it is, and then pick a seller type, pre-foreclosure, absentee owner, liens, probates, whatever it is. Become very focused on one thing of each, a location and a seller type, and then start doing the activity. So we're going to talk a little bit about some of these other steps in what we call the zone method, which is zeroing in on your target market, owning your mind share, nurturing and grow your database, and impacting your community. That's kind of like 4 stages of zone. But the real thing to do is just to start taking action. And you could start now. You could start today, tonight. You could start tomorrow. All you really need is a geographic location and a seller type. And if you can focus on those 2 things and do some of the activities that we're going to talk about next, you can start finding opportunities. I assure you, even with something that's as a popular, investor strategy as going after pre-foreclosures, you can get started, and I assure you can find deals if you do the activity. So the first step would be, once you've figured out your seller type and location, is to start building a list. So you can do that several ways. Driving for dollars is great, especially if it's a market that you're not familiar with. Get out there into the market, start driving around, learn the different areas and what's going on in the different areas and housing types, and take notes of some properties that you see while you're there, some areas that you see, or some streets. There are great apps out there that you can just kind of drive and click your phone and put properties in. Deal Machine, my CRM has its own Driving for Dollars app. I'll have a slide with my CRM if you guys are interested in that, but highly recommend Driving for Dollars when you're getting started, just so you can understand the market if you don't already know it. And then some more traditional like list stacking or methods that you can use, softwares or websites like Batch Leads, PropStream, where you could pull this type of data, pre-foreclosure data, probate data, expired data, filter by your geographic location and your seller type using one of these, Batch Leads, PropStream. Get their phone number. So that's what skip tracing is. You put in the address or a list of addresses, skip trace those properties to get a phone number. And if you have an area and addresses and phone numbers, you can get started finding opportunities. You've got all the tools right there that you need. You really don't need anything more than that. Another good resource, True People Search, if you guys don't know about it, it's like free skip tracing. Essentially, it's free public information. I use personally Batch Leads and True People Search on a daily basis. Those are my 2 sources of data primarily.
Before you leave that
So kind of
slide,
like, yep,
before you leave that slide, you
yes.
have several different options that are available to you as a wholesaler for you to focus on. Is there one that you're discovering is working now more than others, or is there one for somebody who's a beginner that they should consider pursuing first?
Again, going back to me, it's been pre-foreclosure. My thought is that whatever list you focus on is going to be the list that works, because if you're focused on a list and you're sending the same messaging and having the same conversations with the same people about that type of property, you're going to be successful. I mean, I don't think there's one that works better than others. I think it's really comes down to your focus. The problem is people want to do all of the things. They want to call pre-foreclosures, probates, expires, FSBOs, and liens. They want to call all of them. And then what happens is they've got so many properties that they're calling that they're not able to do the follow-up activity required to close deals, because you're calling all of these properties. Now you've got to follow up with all these different leads, as opposed to being extremely focused on one type and being extremely diligent about your follow-up on the leads that you've called and the list that you've been calling. So I don't think there's one that's better than others. I mean, I prefer pre-foreclosure because, again, I'm going for sub 2 deals. I'm looking for sub 2 opportunities. And for me, it's worked with pre-foreclosure because these people are in a distressed financial situation and they may need a wait out that is not listing their property and selling it on the market. They're open to creative opportunities because maybe I can pay them a little bit more. So that's kind of how I've narrowed my focus, but I don't think there's one that's better than any of the others. I mean, personally, I just think it comes down to time and attention over time. That answers your question, Cheree.
Yeah, it does.
So we'll talk a little bit about strategy. Um, as far as direct to seller outreach goes, I'm going to talk a little bit about my process. This is how I've done it. This is what works for me. There's a lot of wholesalers out there. There's a lot of people training people on how to do this, how to do that. Texting works, calling works, this works, that works. My process has been pretty simple. I've got pre-foreclosure leads. If I've got a new pre-foreclosure lead, a brand new pre-foreclosure lead, I'm going to search that property. I'm going to skip trace it. And then this is my exact process. Number one is going to be, I'm going to cold call that all the numbers that come up in that skip trace. It might be 2 numbers. It might be 20 numbers. Whatever is available through batch leads and True People Search, I'm going to call through all those numbers. If I identify a seller, if I'm not able to get a hold of them, but I can identify them through a voicemail, I'm going to call that number a couple times. I'm not going to call every number a couple times because a lot of these numbers are going to be bad. But if I call a number and I've identified that that is the seller's number, they say, hey, this is John's phone number. I'm looking for John. I'm going to call that number twice. I might call it 3 times. And I'm telling you, double, triple dialing works. It is a hard, it's a hard thing to do. I don't know, for me personally, some people don't care. But for a lot of people, I think it's a hard thing to do because it just feels weird. It feels like maybe you're being annoying or you're being creepy or whatever. But I'm just telling you that my success rate on double and triple dialing people is quite high. I've never had anybody ask me why I've called them more than one time in a row. So I would encourage that from a cold calling perspective to use that technique, especially if you've identified a good number. Now, my calling kind of sequence that I go through, I don't want to be calling people every day, especially if it's pre-foreclosure. And even more importantly, if it's just a regular list of, I don't know, expireds or anything, like there's a fine line to me between being persistent and being annoying to people. So I'll usually space my call days out by minimum 2-3 days, and I'll start calling the same people back, call the same list. Follow-up is different. If I've had a conversation with somebody and I call them and they don't pick up the phone, I'm going to continue to hammer that person. I've already had a conversation with them. I've already built rapport with them, presumably, and they have my information, so they know it's me calling. But for cold calling, I try and walk the line between being annoying and being persistent. But persistency is also key, and timing is key too. Like a list like the pre-foreclosure list, I hear new wholesalers a lot say, well, there's so many people going after pre-foreclosures. I feel like I'm just, somebody, how do I set myself apart? You can set yourself apart to a degree with some of the messaging that you send, but at the end of the day, it comes down to timing. Timing is going to be your winner. You might call somebody one day and, they're at work or they're off doing something. They don't recognize the number. They're not going to pick up the phone. You might call them another day, 2 or 3 days later, and they're sitting at home and, everybody else has been calling them the last few days when they've been busy, but you happen to catch them at the right time. It's really a timing thing. So don't let, a market, uh, like dictate your wanting or your ability to call, because at the end of the day, it's just going to be timing, probably 90% of the time. If that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. So on a normal lead, my process goes like this. I'm going to call that number. I'm like, call through all the numbers. If I don't get anybody on the phone through all of those calls, I'm going to send a simple text message. And frankly, I might bump this up into here. This is sort of like progress, how I do it. I've been having an odd amount of success with social media lately. Just looking people up by name on social media, finding their account and sending them a simple message. Hey, my name is Mike. I noticed your property on whatever street. For me, pre-foreclosure, I throw a little bit of a different script at them. But if it was just a normal list, I would say, my name is Mike. I'm a real estate investor in the area, just reaching out about 123 Main Street. It's a property you may consider selling. Simple message, simple script. But it's been working for me. So I've been using that a lot more recently than I have in the past. So I'll send them a message on social media. I'll send, if I've identified a good number or a couple numbers that, maybe there's not a voicemail identifier, but at least the number rings through. I'll send a quick, simple text message to those numbers, something to the effect of, hey, is this John's phone? All I'm trying to do with that is start a conversation with the intention of getting them on the phone so I can have a real conversation or set an appointment with them. Batch leads and some of these other skip tracing services will also give you emails. I'm like very lukewarm on email. If there's a good Gmail or something, I've got templated emails that I can shoot out on a real quick basis, but I've found very little success with that. But again, my strategy is all about touching them from as many angles as I can and continuing to put that message out there that I'm looking to buy houses in their area. I also have some handwritten letters. I'll just sit down, I'll write a simple handwritten note on a piece of white printer paper. I'll copy it, I'll make 50 copies of it. And then specifically for properties that I'm interested in buying in, I'm not always going to send mail, but if there's properties that I'm really interested in, I'll handwrite their address on it, stick a stamp on it, stuff the envelope, and I might do 10 or 20 of those a day when I'm doing my active lead gen process. And then my last kind of thing, and this is sort of like this is a property that I'm really interested in. If it's something in Front Royal, it's a property that I know, or an area here like Sterling, something local. I'll go and door knock it too, with a simple script. I would just advise people that if you're door knocking, just to be safe, either bring somebody with you or make sure you're in an area that's populated. You're not walking down some dirt road going to knock on a door, of a distressed property. You don't know what kind of situation you're going to walk into. So I would be careful. I would advise people to just be careful with that, but it is effective, especially if you can catch somebody again at the right time. A lot of that is timing. I might leave a sticky note on the door or one of my letters or something as well if I'm out door knocking. But that's kind of my like general, again, it's really not complicated. What's really important is follow-up is what we'll talk about next. But like as far as the new leads go, this is kind of my process. Are there better ways to do it? Are there more efficient ways to do it? Certainly, you can use a multi-line dialer and dial, you know, 2,000 numbers in a day or whatever. I think that's more of an advanced strategy. People are just looking to start having conversations and start finding some potential opportunities. I would take the more direct approach, or trying to think of the right word, but be more intentional with your approach in reaching people. I think if anything's going to set you apart from other people, from the big guys, it would be that, being more intentional, doing a little bit more digging, trying a few things. That's what's worked for me. So I would encourage that from the beginning. And you know, as you grow and as you scale and start maybe expanding your markets, you can look at some of the more proficient and efficient methods of outreach. Questions about any of that stuff? Sorry, before I go back, anybody?
Mike,
Joe had a question. Oh, go ahead, Joe.
do you recommend having a license for pre-foreclosures in your area?
Interesting question. So Virginia just passed some kind of law as of like yesterday that is going to require a license in Virginia for wholesaling activities. Up to this point, I would say no, but it's looking like that may be a requirement starting in July, or is going to be a requirement starting in July for wholesaling in Virginia.
My
Now, if you're just
understanding is that it's required in Maryland as well right now, to have a real estate license in Maryland.
Yeah, in Maryland, you can't even contact people in pre-foreclosure unless you have the proper, you're an attorney or have the proper licensing.
That's news to me on both accounts. Like I said, I've been pretty much sticking to Virginia up to this point. I am licensed in Maryland, Virginia, and West Virginia. But for Virginia, all of the pre-foreclosures are posted publicly, and I have never come into a situation where I got into any sort of hot water for reaching out to people.
Yeah, me
And up
neither.
to this point, I would say, no, you don't need a real estate license, but it's looking like in Virginia, and I guess I didn't know Maryland, you needed a real estate license to
Yeah, it's been
wholesale.
that
That's
way
news to
for I
me.
think a year now or
Okay.
plus.
I
Yeah.
thought
So I
it's,
should probably know that.
I was surprised. I think it started in like 2009, but anyway, you
Okay.
guys
Well,
would,
I
Mike
heard
would know
about it.
better.
Yeah, I heard
Mike
about
would,
it a
I
couple
guess
of years
not. Mike
ago.
doesn't
Yeah.
know better.
Well, Mike also has a license, so he's
Yeah, that could
okay.
be part of my blinders, I guess. Um, so that answers your question.
thank
So let's see, it's 6:40. Okay. I'm going to talk a little bit about scripting. I would encourage you guys, if you want more scripting, detailed scripting, to join me on the Monday call, because we're going to be specifically next week talking about scripting on next week's call. And then, I mean, weekly we'll be touching on various scripting things, I'm sure, listening to calls. I'm encouraging people to record calls. I think that's in here, but record your calls when you're making them, if you can, to listen to them, but also to have other people listen to them. Bring them to the Monday meeting. We can listen to them, critique them, give you some ideas of maybe where things are, especially if you're having issues with booking appointments, or you want to lock up deals, but you're not able to do that. I would encourage you to record calls. But anyhow, I'll go into scripting a little bit, kind of like very baseline. For me, it's all about keeping it simple. You want to ask good questions, but keep your phrasing very concise and controlled, and have control of your tone. The reason for that is, you know, the less you say, the better. You really want to be asking pointed questions that get the seller to talk and let the seller leads you down the path to their problems and their pain points. And we're going to talk a little bit more detail about it here, but just so I'll give you guys like my exact opening script to every cold call that I make. And it's simple. Seller picks up the phone. It says, hello. My first line, hello, is this John or so-and-so? Yes. My next line, I'm sorry to bother you. My name is Mike. Did I catch you at a bad time? The point of that is I want to start, number one, I want to get the seller to say yes a couple times and create a little bit of interaction instead of just, the seller picks up the phone, says hello, and you just jump in and say, hey, my name's Mike. I'm calling about so-and-so property. You're gonna catch them way off guard. You want to break down some barriers, get them to say yes a couple times, kind of get your foot in the door and start the conversation. So I'm cold calling. This is my exact script every time somebody picks up a phone. I would encourage you guys also to, use this script, but at the end of the day, you want to be using your own voice. So figure out a way to make it your own cadence, your own verbiage. Feel free to R&D this thing if you want, but I would encourage you to use your own, use the way that you speak. You don't want to sound like a robot. So take this as a baseline and kind of make it your own. Again, this is my kind of like mantra here. I always want to be coming from a place of service. I always want to be what I like to say, a power for good, and have a mentality of service over self. The reason for that, if you come from a place of service and you're coming from doing good, the conversation is going to be a lot easier for you. You're not going to be having what we call sales breath. You're not going to sound like all you care about is just buying the property. You want to try and be empathetic, understanding to people's situations, and come from a place of service. How can I help you? How can I help solve your problem? Tonality matching is a big one too. You don't want to be too high or too low. If you're dealing with different personality types, starting to identify personality types, tonality, and matching people's energy levels and tones is going to help you be more successful in your calls. This is kind of my next line here, as far as I've already got them to say yes a couple times. Hey, did I catch you at a bad time? Or is this, something along those lines? Well, what are you calling for? Well, I don't want to waste too much of your time. The reason for my call, I'm a real estate investor here in the Front Royal area. I notice you own a property on 123 Main Street. Is this a property you may consider selling? You're looking for a yes, obviously, to this question. If you get a yes here, we'll talk more about kind of the next steps there. But again, keep your script concise. Be straight to the point. Don't try and beat around the bush with what you're calling about. I find that just being open and transparent with your call from the start helps you build rapport. You could throw things like I've helped a lot of people with pre-foreclosure. I've helped a lot of people with whatever probate situations, to help you build some credibility throughout your call. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice here. So we get a yes. We've identified that at least they're consider selling their property. But at the end of the day, people get so excited when somebody gives them a yes. A real motivated lead needs to sell their property. They don't want to sell their property. They're not looking for an offer. There is a real underlying need there. There is a motivation. There is a need. There is a timeline. How soon do they need to sell the property? And then we can kind of go into a couple other things. But you really don't have, I'm not going to say you don't have a lead with a yes. You have a lead. But you're looking for hot leads. You're looking for opportunities to buy a property in 30 days or in 2 weeks or whatever. That's a real motivated seller. And that's where you're going to find your best opportunities to buy properties at a discount. There are cases where I'll get a yes, but somebody's not quite ready and I'll put them on a follow-up and those deals end up working out. the end of the day. But you're really looking for the 4 pillars of a motivated lead again, which is number 1, a true motivation. Why do they need to sell the property? What is their timeline? How soon do they need to sell it? And then digging into the condition of the property, and if you can get a price out of them too, great. But if you get somebody that you come across that says they're interested in selling a property, this is my next kind of scripting line. I just need to ask a few more questions so I can understand the situation to help decide if we're a good fit. And then I'll start digging into motivation. And that looks like this. Why do they need to sell? So my first question, catch me up to speed. Same question every time. What's going on with the property? What has you thinking about selling? Very simple question, very broad, open-ended question. People that are truly motivated are going to really open up, I've found, specifically in the pre-foreclosure state. If they're ready to sell or they've got a serious problem, they're going to be telling you all about it. And all you want to do through that process is validate what they're saying with, I understand, or tell me more about that, or let me see if I have this straight. Things like that, validating. I guess let me see if I have this straight is not a validation, but tell me more about that. Yeah, and I understand what you're going through. Digging into their pain points, asking questions as you go. Tell me more about that. Help me with this. Did you mean that? Validate question, and then once you feel like you've reached a point, follow up what they're saying so that you're reiterating their pain. So what I'm hearing is the property's in pre-foreclosure, your mother got sick, you haven't been able to make the payments, you've got medical bills piling up, you haven't made a payment in 6 months. Is that correct? Am I summing this up right? You really want to be validating what they're saying, digging into the pain points, and dummying up what we say is some of these things. I'm not sure I understand. Help me with this. Did you mean that? Those are kind of the effective ways to dig into the motivation piece. Once you've uncovered their motivation, you've dug in, you've asked them really good questions, you want to figure out their timeline. For me, with pre-foreclosure, it's very black and white. I mean, there's an auction date. I know what it is already before I even get on the call. But other lead types, how soon do they need to sell the property? Tell me about your timeline. What are you trying to accomplish here? What happens if you don't sell is a great way to dig some more information out too, and also get an idea of their timeline. Again, for me, a hot lead within 30 days, maybe 45 days. 30 to 90 days is a warm lead. I'm going to kind of continue some more aggressive follow-up with these types of people that say, yeah, I might be, well, I need to sell, but probably not for another few months. And then a nurture lead, anything over 3 months, like I'm going to put them either on some kind of drip follow-up campaign, or I might follow up with them every few weeks or so often just to stay in their ear. We got 10 minutes left. Oh, I got a lot left to cover here, Cheree. I'm going to try and speed through this a little bit.
Okay. And we want to leave a few minutes for Q&A as well.
Okay, yeah. I'll burn through some of this. Condition pretty obvious. Validating the bed bath count. Sometimes people do like weird additions or add a bathroom that's doesn't pop up when you search the property. So validating that. Is there a basement? Is it finished? Any updates in the last 5 years? That's really kind of like a baseline for, if the property is needing updates. And then the major systems, roof, HVAC, water heater. We deal with well and septic a lot, so I always want to know if it's on public or well and septic. And then any other issues that you may need to, ask about. Hey, is there anything else that you didn't tell me about that maybe would be important? Price, you want to try and pull a price out of people, but I always want to avoid asking them for a price. Like, what number do you need? I like to phrase it more along the lines of, if I could solve this problem for you and you're able to pay off all your debt, what are you looking to walk away? What are you looking to walk away with in your pocket? Um, I feel like it's just an easier way to understand what they really need. If I'm having trouble getting to that number, I might ask them a more generic question like, how much do you want for the property? Or maybe something like, what is your unrealistic price? That way I can get a sense of like where they're at. And then I'll follow up with, what are you basing that off of? A lot of times people just see their price on Zillow or Redfin and they think their property is worth a lot more than it is, but they're not taking into consideration the condition of the property. So I want to get an idea of how they're coming to their conclusion. If you have those four things, and you're not comfortable kind of with, and again, this kind of goes back to my training a little bit, but those are the four kind of important things to figure out as far as a motivated seller. And then typically I'll stop the conversation at that point and try and set up an appointment to get in front of the seller. If you're in a position where either you're not comfortable moving forward or they've asked you questions that you feel like you don't have the answer to, just stop what you're doing in one solution. A better solution is you all have a partner. I tell this to everybody that I train on acquisition strategy. Everybody is your partner. If you don't know the answer to somebody, just be honest and just say, that's a really good question. I want to get an answer for you. Let me talk to my partner about that and find out. Gives you an easy out. I don't care who your partner is. It could be me. It could be some other investor you're working with. But use that. I mean, I use this more than anything. Like if I run into a roadblock with somebody's my partner and they're going to know the answer. And that's the case with this. Hopefully everybody here is a member of Grid. The point of Grid is just for that. You've got a partner, and everybody in that group, there's people that are super experienced that you can reach out to with questions. Just tell them, let me ask my partner. But stop when you feel like you've gathered all the information you can get. Set a follow-up appointment. Thank them for their time and for the information. And again, go back. I just want to appreciate your time. I think I have all the information I need. Let me take this back to my partner and see what we can do for you. Is there a good time to follow up? And at that point, you can either schedule property walkthrough, you can schedule a follow-up appointment. If you don't feel comfortable closing, you could bring an opportunity like this to me or to another partner for a JV or a lead, a bird dog fee or something like that. I'm happy to talk to people about strategy and underwriting separately, but
Can I
that's kind of
piggyback
my
off of that?
scripting. Yep, go ahead.
Money is never an issue for a good deal.
Yes, good
If
point.
you
Thank you,
have a
Cheree.
good deal, sign it. Get it under contract, bring it to Mike, bring it to me, bring it to Rob Chavez, who is, the leader of Grid. Like, trust me, somebody
Yeah,
will take a good deal, a great deal, etc. So
yeah,
don't be afraid to lock it up. You can call me and say, hey, Cheree, this seller needs proof of funds. As long as it's a good deal, I will give you the letter. I will talk to the seller. I will make sure they know that you have the financial backing. Do not let money
yeah.
get in the way of you locking down a good deal.
Yeah, big time limiting belief of people starting out in real estate looking for deals is that I don't have the money. I don't know. Where am I going to get the money? Money is the easy part. All of this stuff we talked about is the hard part, and people are willing to throw money at a good deal any day of the week. So definitely don't let money stand in your way. Call Cheree, call me. We could talk about the deal, however you want to deal with it. Real quick, again, some ideas on improving scripting. record your calls. We talked about that earlier. What if could you have done better? This pains me because I've been recording my calls and listening to them, and the amount of ums and ahs in my call, and probably on these types of things too, drives me crazy. So I've been working on trying to eliminate some of that, and it's very helpful to listen to yourself, as terrible as it might be for some of you, and I know for me as it is. It gets easier with time and reps. I mean, that's what it comes down to. You got to get the reps in. We have 3 minutes left. Follow-up and tracking, have a system. This was my spreadsheet that I started using when I started my outreach. Very simple. County, address, name, trustee name. Again, I'm doing foreclosure, so I had trustee name, auction date, phone number, and notes. And this is how I kept track of my stuff for probably 6 months until I got my CRM, which is here, that I now use Resimpli. If you guys are interested in it, I put a link in here. But at the end of the day, the best CRM is the one you use. So use something, use a Google spreadsheet. If you can, if you have, capital to invest in a CRM, I like Resimpli. None of them are perfect. They all have their issues. They all, I've tried a bunch of them. The best one is the one you use at the end of the day. Consistency and persistency is what is important. The money's in the follow-up. It takes me on average 8 to 10 conversations to close a deal. So if you think you're just going to go make cold calls or whatever, and you're going to close deals, you're missing it. You're missing the whole thing. It's all about follow-up. It's all about being organized with your follow-up, and being consistent and persistent with your follow-up. Otherwise, you can have a conversation with somebody, but if you're not going to follow up with them and do the activity that's required, you're gonna lose a lot of opportunities, and you're gonna get really frustrated, especially if you're finding opportunities but you're not closing them. I can almost assure you it's related to your follow-up. KPIs is kind of high level, but like if you start tracking your KPIs and you understand your numbers, this all becomes a math problem, and you learn your business. You know how many calls that it's going to take you to close the deal. I waited way too long to start doing this. I've been much more intentional with it lately, and it's helped me a lot understand my business and understand the activity that's required to close deals. So I encourage you guys to start doing this. Track your number of calls, to conversations, to leads, to appointments, to close deals. I'm going to skip through that right now. Since we're almost out of time, how can we work together? If you guys are out there finding leads, you don't know how to close them, all you want to do is maybe find leads. I'll pay 10% on any wholesale assignment fee for a lead that I close. So you can go out and just make the calls, set up appointments, and I can close deals and pay you 10% all day. My average assignment fee is 10,000. I'm closing one. I closed one today. It was 35,000. So that'd be a $3,500 payment to you. If you brought me a lead, I was able to close it. Bird Dog and Learn, this is kind of like the next step. If you're interested in learning the process, you want to bring me a deal, I'll still pay you the 10%. And then I'll help you kind of, we could walk through the process together, have conversation with the seller, go on appointments, talk about paperwork, talk about deal underwriting strategy and exit strategy. JVing is kind of like the next level. You find the deal, maybe you put it under contract, you need a buyer, we JV, I bring a buyer, or vice versa. I have a deal, I need a buyer, you have a buyer, we JV on it, we split profits. There's lots of ways to JV. And then again, I'm looking for people for my team. So if you guys you're interested in wholesale training like this, but more in depth, send me an email, follow up with me. I will follow up with most of you anyways. I'm holding training every Monday at 4 o'clock for those that are interested. I'm kind of using it as like a training ground for talent, like a proving ground. What was the word? That incubator, if you will. So that's it. That's all I got. 1 hour. almost 2 minutes late. You guys have any questions? I know I covered kind of a lot, and a lot of it is maybe stuff you've heard, maybe from a different perspective. Hopefully you got something out of it, but if you guys have questions, please let me know. There's no stupid questions.
If somebody works
Oh,
full-time and they are
yeah,
thinking that they just want to do this part-time, like
sure.
roughly how much time do you think they should set aside per week? Is it 3 weeks? Is it five? Not 3
Hours.
hours, 10 hours, 20 hours? Like,
Hmm.
what have you discovered?
Again, I think it just goes back to consistency. Um, I feel like if you spent an hour a day, 3, 4 days a week with lead gen activity, you could find deals. It's all about consistency. Um, being making your lead gen activity consistent, and then making your calling consistent across that lead gen time that you've set aside, and then making your follow-up consistent over that time that you set aside. Um, you know, like I said, if you're working a full-time job, 9 to 5, 5 days a week, and all you have is a couple nights on the week, during the week, that maybe you could make calls for an hour or two, and a couple hours during the weekend, you've got kids, whatever, you've got other stuff going on. Just be intentional with your time. That would be my advice. You could do it an hour a day, 4 days a week, 3 days a week. As long as you're consistent with your activity, you will have success finding deals, sourcing deals. It's the people that say, well, I want to do it part-time, but they don't set any sort of schedule. They're only doing what they have time. They might do 2 days a week this week, but then they're inconsistent, for 2 weeks. And then all their work that they did for 2 weeks, it might be lost. Maybe you could follow up with somebody and still get an opportunity, but it's really about consistency and persistency. So anybody else have any questions, thoughts? My information is here. Shoot me an email, give me a call. I'll make sure to send the Monday training out on Grid, and also via email. Right now I'm holding it on Google Meet, but I'll probably need to find a better way to do it moving forward. I think we've got like 20 or 30 people signed up already just from last week. So
Well, I thank you
all right.
for, yeah, being here with us tonight. I hope everybody has gotten Mike's information and you would take advantage of his Monday trainings, definitely. And look, there's a lot of opportunity out there. So if this is a way that you want to acquire properties, whether you want to wholesale them or you're buying them to keep them, because I know some of you are looking to find better deals in order to have them as part of your long-term rental portfolio, then, definitely connect with Mike with
For
regards to
sure.
what he's
And I'm a
teaching.
Hey, Cheree.
resource. I'm a
Uh,
resource. Yep. We got a question?
yeah, it
Yeah,
wasn't a question. Unfortunately I could not join on time, so I dialed in a little bit late. So would I be getting an email about the Monday training after this, or
Yeah,
do I need to
yeah.
call separately?
I'll make sure that Mike gets your information, or you can just email him. You can grab his email.
Yeah,
Mike,
my
can
email's
can
up.
you put it in the chat
I'll put it in the
so
chat.
Poe
Yeah.
can get it as well?
yeah, that was my question.
Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And I got your
I'll put my
email from
email in the
earlier
chat.
today, Poe, as well. So I'll talk to your friend.
It's sellsimply.co, not .com. It's a common.
Yeah, I got it, Mike. Thank you.
Okay, great. Yeah, just shoot me an email. Say, hey, I'm interested in the Monday training. I'll send you the invite. And like I said, it'll be every Monday at 4 o'clock, every week. So you miss one, come the next week, bring questions. Each week we'll kind of cover some kind of different topic, or we'll do some call review, or last week I kind of went through my process in detail. Next week we're going to be talking more in depth about scripting. So we try and provide value to you guys, help move your all's investing journey along. Hopefully we can do some deals together and you know, make it a win-win for everybody. So if you guys can make it, I'd love to see you there. Got a great group already, looking to add to it. So
Well, thank you, Mike. Thanks everybody for
Yep.
being here, and we'll see you on Monday's trainings. Take care.
awesome. Thank you,
Night.
Cheree.
Bye-bye.
Thank you all.